and Abednego. 3 Israelite slaves in the nation who were asked to bow down like everybody else did to an idol made after the king. And when they were brought before the king, it was said, bow down or you're going to be thrown into a fire. And they said, "O king, our God is able to deliver us, but even if he doesn't, we will not bow down to you or this throne that you have had built in your image and in your honor." So we're going to sing a song saying there's another one in the fire with me before the sermon this morning. And the reality is I've had moments in my life where I have come to a decision where I had to make a conscious effort to stand for God and my beliefs and all that I value are to compromise. And in those times when I felt like I stood for God and it was hard, there were times when I was younger in my faith when I cried out, "Oh, God, where are you?" There are times in my faith as I matured, "Oh, God, where are you?" This morning we are reminded that our God is with us even in the fire. So if you would, let's stand and sing.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the still me. There was another. Oh, see, and should I ever remember of how we said there is a cross that bears the burden where another died for me. There is another in the fire. Oh, my dad left for Ebony. The one I'm gonna take to my city. And should I between what remains of me? It's reckoning. If I should I think something so young. And I know what being right. There is there isn't should there is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come on, mate, in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning. I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire.
guys go ahead and be seated. You know, there was a certain amount of, as a kid, I love these kind of stories. You know, VBS was awesome. You got to see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and people get all dressed up for VBS like that. Stories of David and Goliath. You see some little guy about Ford size come in, and somebody like Jerry size sitting there and said, "Who comes before me?" Those kind of things. And it was cool. But now as a kid, one of the things that used to happen, and who of you in kindergarten remember saying this? Anybody? I'm not the only one, first grade, second grade. So if you're able to, just go with me on this for a second. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now here's the thing, right? Normally when I do that, I got my hand on my chest. I forgot about it, but I saw one of y'all doing it. Why don't we put our hand on our chest? Honor, we mean it, to salute. Okay, but we put thought, we put meaning into it, right? I can remember doing this before baseball games, before school events. You name it, we've done it. You go to any kind of a function anymore, they're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance and then also usually the national anthem a lot of times. But what did we just promise? Yeah. And allegiance is more like this: loyalty, fidelity, commitment to a sovereign, to a nation, to a cause, or to authority. See, I pledge allegiance is making a declaration of loyalty. Now, what loyalty means to you and what loyalty means to me might be different, but at the end of the day, loyalty means loyalty. And to what degree you or I are going to be loyal to the pledge that we just made. Let's be honest. We live in a society where people make pledges all the time. I pledge to you on this day through sickness and health, through good and bad, till richer or poor, till death do us part. And it doesn't always work out, right? So the pledge that we just made, I pledge allegiance, what's it directed to? To the flag. I pledge allegiance to what? The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands for. So a God and a political party. The idea, pledge to the flag. The republic which is represented by that flag, one nation under God. Indivisible. With liberty and justice for all. Now, I know that there have been men and women throughout history who have given their lives so we can make this pledge. They took the pledge a step farther. But what happens when a legitimate allegiance becomes ultimate allegiance? I want you to think about that this morning. What happens when a legitimate allegiance becomes ultimate allegiance? What happens when my allegiance to my spouse becomes the ultimate allegiance? I've asked Justine to read something for us this morning. And so, let's think about the Roman world that we're going into, that we're talking to, that John is writing to in Revelation. Keep this in mind from an historical standpoint.
Rome itself had once been a republic, but by John's day, the republic had given way to imperial rule. One man now stood at the center of enormous political and military power, and throughout the Roman world, political loyalty increasingly became intertwined with sacred honor. The Roman Republic effectively gave way to Augustus's principate in 27 BC, while many republican institutions formally remained in place. Imperial veneration also varied by period and province.
Hold there for a second. I underline formally because at one time it was a republic. It had ideas, it had thought. It wasn't perfect, but it was a republic. They still remained in place, and now you have an emperor who is recognized as being a deity, being God, and requiring worship.
It was more than emperors announcing, "I am God." Imperial cults gave emperors and the imperial family religious honors and worship. And this phenomenon is especially relevant to discussions of Revelation and its original context in Asia Minor.
Thank you. So, do we agree? I put them up here so everybody can see them. That government can legitimately ask for obedience to a law. If you agree, raise your hand. Okay? Do we agree that a nation can inspire affection, love, and loyalty to a nation? It can. Do we believe that citizenship carries responsibilities? I think most of us do. But here's the thing, right? What happens when government wants ultimate authority? Because that's what it wants. Throughout time, all governments at the end of the day want ultimate authority. You can look back over history. It happens. What happens when the ruler or the ruling party cannot be questioned? Oh, if you question it, all of a sudden you must be an enemy. No, I just have questions. Oh, you question it? Then we can't be friends. And then all of a sudden, the nation that was once divided undivided is now what? Divided. And the nations of men will always be divided. What happens when loyalty to the ruler becomes synonymous with being a good citizen? In Rome, hey, I'm all for Caesar. I'm all for the empire in Rome. I'm all for what it brings. Oh, you're not? Well, you can't work for me anymore. You're not? Let's put you in the Colosseum. You're not? Let's take everything that you own away from you. And we get into this, y'all see it in our culture. We're not much different, are we? We get into this back and forth. What happens when political authority starts reaching into territory that only belongs to God? What Rome did. That's what the king of Babylon did when he asked Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to bow down. John sees the vision in Revelation chapter 4, which is where we started last week. He says this, around the throne were 24 thrones. Remember, he's looking up into heaven. He has seen what's going on the ground. God is talking to him. Jesus has spoken to him and said, look, I'm going to show you what's going to happen and what is happening and what's going to happen. He talks to the 7 churches, the ecclesias, throughout the Asia area. This is what you're doing good. This is where you're struggling. I see these things. I'm walking among you. But in the reality of this, John's seeing it too. You're seeing it. I'm seeing it. But none of us literally see into heaven what's going on right now while we're down here. And so God brings him up. And he looks into the throne room. He said, around the throne were 24 thrones. On the throne sat 24 elders dressed in white clothes with golden crowns on their head. Now, a lot of you are going to want to know as we go through this who the 24 elders are, what are the different beasts and all these things. And we will touch on those in the weeks to come. But what I want you to understand right now, just for some commonplace, 24 elders could be the Old Testament and New Testament. 24 elders could be all of the priests we see in Chronicles. 24 could be. My point is there's a lot of could-be's. We don't know all the could-be's. What we do know is that John's in heaven. He sees 24 thrones surrounding a throne. And on that throne are elders dressed in white with golden crowns on their head. When God was talking to the people of Laodicea, he said, to those who overcome, who dress in white clothes, they will receive a crown. And they will sit next to me like I sat next to my Father. John sees the throne. John sees 24 other thrones. He sees people sitting on the thrones and crowns on their heads. It's easy to get lost in all the glamour and the pictures, right? But this is what he sees. The problem isn't that other authorities exist. I want you to hear me. That's not the problem. The problem is forgetting that it's derived authority. For those of you who don't know what derived means, it's given to you. You didn't create it. It's derived. It comes from somewhere else. It comes from a higher power. Here's an example. I'll show you in just a minute. The problem is also forgetting that it's derived. People forget. So government forgets and people forget. Well, he's the president. I have to do what he says. Or he's the governor. I have to do what he says. Or she's the president. She's the police officer. She's whatever. I have to do what it says because that's the law. Here's an example. A police officer's power of authority is derived from the laws of the state. They don't have any laws that the state authority the state doesn't give them. Does that make sense? Everybody? Just making sure we're on the same page. So we got to know the difference between a lesser allegiance and ultimate allegiance. Now I want to stop right here before I go any further because I can already hear some of you in your heads. Well, yeah, all authority goes to God and everybody else falls in second place. That's true until it's not. We see throughout time where God's people, God's warning them in the first 3 chapters of Revelation, where God's people start caving in and compromising and giving the government and giving other things, other organizations, their allegiance on equal par, if not higher than God. We call it compromise. God calls it a breach in relationship. So we got to know the difference between a lesser and an ultimate. So what does John see? The throne is occupied and God is on the throne. First thing we got to see is God is on the throne. All the other authorities, all the other leaders, all of those in power are surrounding him, but the one who is on the throne, the central throne, is God himself. John also sees that these lesser crowns, they have authority. They have crowns. They have position. And they have honor. Nobody's debating that. But it's not ultimate. Hear me. Revelation is not saying that you can't have authority in governments. What he is saying is there's one ultimate authority. So what do people with thrones and crowns do when they encounter ultimate authority? You're driving down the road and the cop pulls you over. What do you typically do? You pull over and do what? Obey. What do they typically ask you when they pull you over? License and what? Do you have the ability not to do that? If you do that, are you in compliance with the law? No. But you have the ability to do it. So why do you do it? Because it's authority and you're trying to comply with the law. And you got nothing to hide. Whenever the living creatures give glory, honor, and thanks to one seated on the throne, the one who lives forever and ever. So I'll back up. What do people with thrones and crowns do when they encounter ultimate authority? John says this. Whenever the living creatures give glory, honor, and thanks to the one seated on the throne, the one who lives forever, the 24 elders fall down before the one seated on the throne, and they worship the one who lives forever and ever. This is not just biblical language. This is not just feel-good language. This is not just something to woo. It's showing that authority that God has set in place is recognizing his authority. And what do they do when they come into his presence? They fall down and they give up things. Why? And they cast their crowns before the one and they say, now, we're going to listen to this song. Some of you know this song, some of you don't. I'm just going to ask you to listen to it. If you want to sing with it, by all means do. Because it is our invitation song today, and it's built off of this verse that we just read.
They could. And all. Come and sing your word. Your be so. Day and day, let incense arise. Day and night and day, let incense arise.
Now, I want you to understand that I am not anti-America. I'm not anti anything along those lines. What we are talking about today is God came to John in the book of Revelation, a book that many of us stay away from out of not understanding. And he tells them up front that the things that you see around you are real. The struggles, the benefits, the challenges, the call to compromise, government taking positions in authority that's not theirs. And if you're going to be put in a situation and backed into a corner, if you will, to have to make those decisions. And I hear people all the time talk about, I never thought I'd see the day in America. This would come to this. And my thought would be, when I was younger, yeah, I get it. But now that I'm older, we should have. God tells us in the book of Kings, one nation stands forever, and it's God's. Every other kingdom falls except His. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego understood that. They understood that God was worthy of praise, and they were living a good life. They had the posh jobs in Babylon. They had them. And just like today, there were some men, a group of people who wanted to get at them, get to them. They say, look, these guys are never going to betray their God. They're aligned with Him, and their allegiance is to Him more than it is to you, O King Nebuchadnezzar. The only way you're going to get them to fall is if you put them in a situation where their very life is threatened. Now, we don't read of anybody else taking a stand. The Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't get pushed into a corner. They stepped out the same way David did against Goliath. You come at me with a spear and a shield, you pagan. I come at you in the name of the Almighty God, and my God is able to deliver you today on this field. And when I cut your head off and the birds feed upon you, everyone will know that there is God in Israel. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, our God is able to deliver us. But if He chooses not to, He's still God, and we won't bow down. Jesus Christ Himself in the garden. If there's any other way, but not my will, your will, His allegiance was to the Father. And we're faced with this day in and day out. It's not about religion. It's not about church. It's about allegiance to a God who's worthy of it or not. So what do people with thrones and crowns do when they encounter ultimate authority? In heaven, they get off their thrones. They fall down, they worship, and they lay their crowns down at His feet. Rome, Babylon, Persia, Asia, Russia, Brazil, Germany, Japan, Vietnam, Korea, Australia, the United States, and all in between. Protect your throne. Do what you have to do to stay in power at all costs. Increase the size of your authority. You don't believe that? Then why do we have wars with people that we'd normally be friends with? Tripp swam at Wingate University. Most of his team was European. He's friends with all of them. But if their country says, no, we need to go to war, guess what? They just became enemies because somebody else told them to be. Proving over and over again that mankind ultimately gives its allegiance more often than not to mankind. Well, I want to protect my way of life. Okay. Jesus did too. He died on a cross, and he calls you and me to do the same. Defend your crown. I've got my power, and I'm going to keep it. I'm going to hold it. Don't you come. We're not talking about monopoly. We're not talking about king of the hill. How often do politicians, businesses, individuals in general, coaching staffs, colleges, fill in the blank, defend their crown at all costs and cut corners and stomp on people to keep what they want and then demand loyalty? How often has a company demanded your loyalty that they've done nothing to deserve? But you hold on and you do it. Why? Because you need a paycheck. You want to feed your family. I get it. God gets it. John gets it. The men and women of the 7 churches of Asia get it. That's why Jesus steps into their context. He says, look, I know what's really going on, and it's a struggle. But now I want you to see a glimpse of heaven, what's going on at the same time. Because when it looks like these governments of men are in control, they're really not. Their power is derived. It's given. It was given to them. It's not ultimate. John sees heaven and those crowns were taken off. Chapter 4, verse 11. Our Lord and God, you are worthy to receive glory, honor, and power. Why? Because you have created all things. And by your will, they exist. And were created. Kingdom of this world do teach us to fight for a crown, do they not? God's kingdom gives us a crown and teaches us to lay it down. Jesus modeled it. He left heaven, came to earth, and became a servant, laying his crown down. So why do they bow down? The reason for bow down isn't that God won the election. Why the 24 elders bow down? Not because he has the biggest army. God defeated other gods. In fact, he had all that, and Jesus still bowed down and went to the cross. We sing a song, he could have called 10,000 angels, but he died alone for you and me. Because for him, it was an allegiance to God, first and foremost. They bow down because God is the creator, and they are the creation. We have to remember that. The government of men, business leaders, husbands, wives, individuals, aunts, uncles, we're all created. None of us possess ultimate authority. Again, authority in and of itself is not wrong. But don't confuse derived authority with inherent authority. Ultimate authority is the distinction, right? Because the president was created, was he not? Has there ever been a president that was never created? Anybody? Didn't think so. King was created. That means the emperor of Rome? Yeah, he was created too. At the time of this, Domitian. Every nation made of created people. Started off as colonies here on this side. Before that, were just some people who jumped off the boat. Every political party is created by people. And if they're anything like me, and they are, they don't know it all. But sometimes they think they do. Every government is created. Every church leader created. The 24 crowned elders, they were created. God alone is creator. Now we know that, we say that, but saying it doesn't mean we're aligned to it. Saying it doesn't mean that God has our allegiance. Our actions determine. Our inaction determines who has our allegiance. Every authority other than God's is derived. It means it's given. So when we say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all, can I say that as a Christian? Yes and no. Because the day it demands my allegiance to it instead of God, because our nation's definition of who God is and what God accepts is not the same as who God says He is and what God accepts. And that's a fine line. I know it raises some eyebrows and gets some heart races up. Don't think it didn't in Rome. Don't think it didn't in the 7 churches of Asia that Jesus is talking to, that John is giving the message to, and that now that John is in heaven, that God's not saying, look, I know compromise is commonplace. But only those who have ears to hear and eyes to see and do are going to be found faithful. But can a Christian say those words? Yeah. Revelation requires us to ask a much deeper question. Not can we say it. What kind of allegiance are we talking about? I can love my country. I can honor the flag. I can participate in our republic. Absolutely. I can obey legitimate authority. I can be thankful for those who sacrifice for our freedom all day long. I cannot give to any flag, republic, president, political party, nation, movement, church leader, or human authority. I cannot give it anything that only belongs to God, the one seated on the throne. I can't. And our nation is more and more becoming that. You're either Republican or Democrat. And if you're one or the other, then the other one automatically becomes, by default, your enemy in our culture. The only king and the only kingdom that unites people is God. And God has called us to be that light, to be those candlesticks of men and women living in a world that compromises and has got its allegiance all mixed up. Living in a world where people are like, I don't know what to do. What does allegiance even look like? It looks like 60 plus years of marriage. But even that is not the same. Because there are times in 60 plus years of marriage that I compromise. Allegiance looks like standing in the garden and saying, not my will but yours. Allegiance means being able to call down 10,000 angels and letting them tie you up and whip you, rip the skin off your back, break your bones, throw you into prison. It looks like being led up a walk